We good?
Good to go. Can you just give me a clap?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. For the keynote, can you do the same? Just perfect.
We're making music.
Join the band.
Yeah. Nina, thank you very much for joining me on Headstrong.
Thanks for having me.
How are you doing? It's show eve.
It is show eve. I'm feeling a bit on edge.
Really? So by the time this comes out, we'll be done. So we can, in the edit, I'll go, what a show.
Yeah.
Or we'll go, oh, I'm really sorry. No, obviously it's going to be a fantastic show.
Yes.
Do you get nervous or excited, or is it like an accumulation of all these emotions?
Do you know what? I didn't used to get nervous at all because I literally went from school to playing gigs. Like, I never had any build up, if that makes any sense. Like, I started doing gigs when I was a kid. So I think when you're younger, like, you don't have the overanalyzing kind of seeing things for what they are kind of thing.
Like jumping in at the deep end is almost like a beneficial thing.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, I'll go and play an arena. Yeah, why not? And then I guess that just carried on to adulthood. And then when COVID hit and gigs obviously were cancelled for a couple of years, going back on stage after that was like, oh my God, I can't believe I ever did that. Like, how did I get up there? So I'm still getting over all that, to be honest.
And this show, though, is particularly quite intimate.
It is.
And is almost a reflection of the album that's coming out as well. So how do you feel about that? Like, is it a scaled down production in terms of what your concerts are going to look like in the future as well with this new album?
Yeah, I guess we're still figuring all that out, but I knew I wanted to do a really intimate gig for the first one, and this new album, Mountain Music, we recorded it in a really different way, so it was literally just me and a band in Devon. In this studio, we recorded to tape, like it was all very much live, so I was like, I want to bring that experience to the stage, so
I think it's really exciting, and it's new for you as well, like the first time that you've done this. Mm-hmm. A curious question, when is a good time to release an album as an artist, or do you just know?
I mean, if it was up to me, it would just be out the minute I'd written it and recorded it. Management have different opinions, but a good time, I'm grateful for them, because I think they put a plan together, which is helpful, and hopefully they hear more people. But I think, like, don't sit on it too long, because I think an album, especially when it's so personal and you're writing from like your own experiences, it only really stays like relevant for so long to you. I think you can always be proud of your work, but I feel like I'm very much in this album right now, so I'm glad it's coming out quick.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
This is, as you say, the first time that you've recorded with live musicians, and this is an opportunity, I suppose, as well as a musician to be vulnerable. So with it being recorded live, from what I've read and heard, there might be the occasion where if there's an off note, you actually keep it in because you don't have that opportunity to change it, and that's quite exciting. But how does that make you feel in terms of as a musician? Because you've always had this opinion of, actually, I want it to be perfect.
Yes. Yeah, I think doing pop music for so long, you get used to like all the plugins on your voice, the auto-tune, like it's not like you can't sing in tune, it's just, it's a bit loud, isn't it? I think after doing pop music for so long, you get used to the sort of striving for perfection, like the plugins on the vocals, the auto-tune, not that you can't sing in tune, it's just an effect that people are used to when they listen to pop music. So stripping all that off, and actually being comfortable with being flawed and maybe a bit out of tune here and there. Obviously, I didn't leave all the bum notes in, but yeah, picking the moments of character and imperfection to really give it that like human feel.
It gives it a kind of an aesthetic and authenticity, as much as I hate that word. Yeah, but it's true.
Yeah,
which is really exciting.
Yeah, and I think, having that experience with the music, it really like spilled over into every other part of my life, like just the way I dress, like feeling like you can leave the house without makeup, or just, it made me question everything, and I was like, oh my God, being like...
Not everything needs to be...
Yeah, not everything needs to be like perfect. And
yeah, sure. What about this side of things where it's a vulnerable side of you as well from a personal perspective. So it's in a kind of an extension of the music into what you've written about and your kind of personal life. Because there's always this opinion of oversharing as anyone in the public eye. So is that a daunting prospect on what you're sharing in terms of lyrics and your personal experiences?
Yeah, I think, I don't know about you, but as I've got older, I've become less comfortable with sharing myself online with strangers and in my music. I think I'm like naturally quite shy and like private. So writing this music has been like so cathartic and therapeutic, and I absolutely love writing it, but the thought of putting it out is so daunting and like just makes me feel a bit sick, to be honest. So it's taken a lot to get to this point, and I had a lot of help from like friends and my team to be like, what's the worst that can happen? Just like, what are you so afraid of? Yeah.
I think you've talked about it before, but where do you, as you've got older, you've said it, but where do you draw the line on what is right and what is wrong to share? Because as you are a private person, and I think a lot of people get the balance wrong.
Yeah.
Whereas I think this is an opportunity for you where you are maybe sharing more than what you've experienced recently. But how do you find that line of what is right and wrong to share?
It's a very grey area. I think for me, it's like, it's when other people are involved. I think some people don't want their story to be told, and maybe it's like a difficult subject for them. So I think like you have to have some respect for people that you care about and not talk about things that they don't want to be talked about publicly. So I think, for the people that are close to you in your life, I think, that is something to think about.
Do you ask them then? Do you kind of, you want to get in touch and go, well, look, I'm doing this, I've written this.
Yeah.
I really like it, but I want to double check. Sometimes.
Depends how nice they are.
Depends how close I am.
Yeah. No, I think, there's some things that I'm like, I think there's some things as well at the time you think, oh, I really want to share this with everyone because I feel really passionately about it. But I always think in 5 years, would I want this being public? And would I want people knowing about it? And if it's a no, then I tend to not. So there's definitely songs on a hard drive.
Just sit in your music room and play it yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And love it. What about the word community? What does that mean to you as a musician?
Community. I feel like that's a word that I've heard a lot more of recently, because I think community is so important now as an artist, like building your own community and figuring out what that is as well. I think that's something that takes a bit of time, because I think back in the day it was like genres, right? That you'd be into folk, or you'd be into the rock scene, or you'd be into pop music. Whereas now it's like you're into this artist, like it's like communities, if that makes sense. And I think I want to have a community where everyone feels quite like understood, like that can just like feel comforted by the lyrics. It feels like a cozy, warm space. Because I think like a lot of the things on the internet are really scary and like really negative, and I want to have a community where it feels just like like you can breathe and you can put on the music, or you can see the visuals, and it just feels calm. So it's interesting. I think a lot of artists are like tapping into that kind of thing.
What about when people reach out to you? Because you must get DMs or tweets or whatever it is. How often do you get that, and is it an extension of that community going, I really related to those lyrics, and actually I found comfort in it, I found solace in it? Yeah,
I think that is my goal as an artist, is to have people hopefully connect or relate, maybe not even in the same way, but in some way. And when I get a message like that, or someone comes up to me at a gig, it's like, oh. Like
do you get emotional about it?
Sometimes. It depends what it is. It's quite surreal, really. Online, I think it's hard to connect that they're actually real people. And when you meet people at gigs, it's like, whoa, it's real people. And it makes, like we were saying, all the anxiety of putting the stuff out worth it, because you think, oh, like this person's really like, I don't know, it's helped them through something.
Yeah, is there anything that you can remember? Anything that anyone said, or someone that you've met?
A lot of people. I had an album called The Sun Will Come Up, Seasons Will Change, and so many people got it tattooed on them. Like, they had a lot of like, sun will come up, the seasons will change, like a lot of them. and they come to the gigs, and I was just like, oh my God, like, you've chosen to have my lyrics on your body. That's actually, like, I can't get my head around that. So yeah, I think that, I mean, that's always just so bizarre.
It's pretty
and
surreal,
cool.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Now, this is a reflection of kind of your 20s and some of your experiences in your 20s. Looking back, let's say when you were at the beginning of that journey, is there any advice that you would give to yourself that you now have known through these experiences?
Oh, God, so much. I think, well, there's lots of things to break it into, I guess. I think relationship-wise, I think, I don't know if guys have this, but I feel like as a girl, you have this, you know, fairy tale image of what things are going to be like. And I think, yeah, I used to go out with people and then be like, nah, I'm not into it. Like, we've had an argument, you're not the one. Which is so fickle, right?
Sure.
But I think I've learned, like, it's more about finding someone that you can go through life with and, like, go through those tough times with, come out the other end, like, persevere. Obviously, like, things need to be good. And you have a lot of positive experiences too. But I think, yeah, finding someone that you can, I'm really grateful to have had someone to go through my 20s with, and like have the ups and downs. And I feel like as a generation, we're quick to just move on. Like,
Definitely.
people, they think there's so many options out there. And yeah, I'm glad that I've like stuck with someone.
I suppose it's true that, I mean, yes, there are. And I think with the way that social media's gone and the world getting smaller with, you know, travel and all that, yes, of course. But then you're right. Like, if I look back at, you know, the generations before us, people would have to get through thick and thin. Like, and that's kind of part of life and a good part of it, right? Because you actually learn so much more from that.
I think
Whereas,
so.
like, with that, what you were saying before, like, with this perfect, you know, fairy tale idea, and I did, by the way, you know, it's quite a shallow way to look at things.
Yeah, and I think as well that spills into like just life goals or career things. I'm now like really trying to I love just sitting on the sofa reading a book. I love going for a walk in the woods. I know it sounds so boring, but like those are the little things that I get excited about. And I think I spent a lot of my 20s chasing like, I'm going to be happy when I get to this point in my career, or when I sell out this venue. And it's like, it's very quick, it's very like fleeting. So I try and like have a nice life and do like the little things, and also like have ambitions.
I think it's great. Right. This is super exciting, but we're going to rewind and talk about growing up Scotland. And first of all, how music entered your life. Can you remember a childhood defining song? Something that kind of is something that is a core memory of yours when you were growing up?
I mean, I've said this a lot, but Fearless by Taylor Swift, that whole album for me was the album that made me think, I want to be a singer-songwriter, I want to play guitar. And I heard 15 at the back of my music class. And I think I was 15 roughly at the time, and I thought,
perfect,
she's written this for me. This is it. And that was like a real awakening of, because I grew up with just pop music really, so that made me see that you can be like a young girl and play an instrument and write your own songs and have like control over your own narrative. And that just, I was like, oh my God, this is what I want to do in my life. So
what were those opportunities like growing up as a child in Scotland from a musical sense? Were you exposed to a lot? Were you given a lot of opportunity to play, sing?
Like, I don't come from a musical background at all, which I think is quite rare actually in this industry, but my mum was a huge music lover. She's Swedish, so we had a lot of ABBA. We had a lot of like pop divas, Mariah, Whitney, and I loved just singing in my front room. So it wasn't like anything, you know, musical really, but yeah, I think I loved words. Like, I used to flick through all the albums and read all the lyrics.
What was that support like then from your mum when you were kind of going, actually, do you know what, this is something I want to do, this is a career prospect now? How was that support from your kind of your closest ones?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, she's
because it's
like,
actually, sorry, if we're like in the creative industries, it's very difficult. When I started acting, it's like, okay, yeah, sure, but what's plan B just in case?
Yeah, I mean, definitely had a lot of that. I think being in Scotland as well, we're quite cynical. So it's like, you know, don't get your hopes up too much. So I definitely had that. But my mum's very much like an optimist. She's like, do you know like that scene of Kris Jenner that's like, you're doing amazing, sweetie? That's my mum. So I think she's...
Number one fan.
Number one fan. Yeah, she's definitely been instrumental in like supporting me, and my friends again are like very supportive. But yeah, I mean, the other side of my family definitely bring me back down to earth.
But in a good way. In a good way. It's not like it's destructive, I hope.
No.
Yeah. What were those other career prospects then? Not to say that you kind of considered, but what were the options?
Well, again, like being in a village with no contacts, I thought it's probably not going to happen for me. So I tried the X Factor, got rejected. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't really sing at the time, to be fair, but that for me, I was like, right, plan B. So I thought about criminology, really interested in criminals, find them fascinating.
A couple of good documentaries out at the moment.
Great documentaries. That's it, really.
Yeah.
God knows what I would have done. It's really good that music's worked out for me.
So in that kind of small village town and indeed your kind of family and in Scotland from that kind of cynicism perspective, was mental health ever part of a conversation? Was it talked about when you were growing up?
Not really. I didn't even really know what mental health was until I had my first experience with anxiety at 15. I actually left school early because I was so unwell with it. And I'd never even really heard of anxiety. That sounds crazy now, but at the time it just wasn't really a thing. And I started having panic attacks when I was maybe 15. And that lasted for a year, like multiple times a day, like couldn't even leave the house. It was that bad. Couldn't sit in class at school. And I remember thinking, like, I thought it was something physical, like asthma, like if I couldn't breathe. And I was in the hospital, go to the doctors, and then they were like, it's anxiety disorder. And I was like, oh, like, what am I even anxious about? But it was so physical for me. It wasn't like typical, like what you think, like, oh, I'm worried about this. It was like physical symptoms. And I used to sit and Google, like, can successful people have anxiety? Like, can successful people still achieve what they want to achieve and have panic attacks? And I just thought it was going to be such a roadblock for me with what I wanted to do. And then, like, obviously, I think a lot of it was social media, like finding out about ways to cope with anxiety. And
what were your kind of coping mechanisms?
To be honest, I don't really know how I got over it. It just stopped one day. So I actually have no idea. I think a lot of it was like triggered by hormones for me.
Sure.
I don't really know. But now, like, I definitely have like a baseline anxiety, but I've not had a panic attack in a long time. And I feel like I'm now like the opposite. I'm just so chilled. So for me, it's just more about like preventative things now. So if I'm feeling stressed with work stuff or whatever's going on, like have a bath, like have a walk in nature. It sounds so cliche, but like
But everyone has their
help.
coping mechanisms, and
Yeah.
for some, having a bath, they'd be like, well, I'm not sitting in hot water for 20 minutes. But whereas, you know, I hear, oh, go on a dog walk for an hour, I'd be
Yeah.
like, yes, fresh air, exercise. And I know that they do sound cliche, but there's a reason that people do them, right?
Yeah, definitely. Or going to see the girls, like actually like talking about how you feel, that helps.
Do you think writing music was a good outlet for you then?
Definitely, yeah. Writing music is, I think, like I've tried therapy briefly, but I feel like writing music is the most beneficial for me. And I think a lot of creatives maybe feel similar. It feels like you kind of, I don't want to compare them, but like I feel like I'm achieving what I set out to achieve in therapy, just getting things off my chest, but not having to like be embarrassed in front of anyone. But yeah, then it's obviously putting them out adds a whole other layer. But yeah, definitely helps.
Well, it's a good thing that you're not releasing an album about any personal experience.
Great, isn't it? Yeah.
What was your experience with therapy like then? Because in this day and age, still people are reluctant to show that vulnerability and say, I'm going to a therapist, because they might see it as weakness and oversharing, but it's a professional who wants to help you in that way. And actually, as you said, just getting off your chest is the best first step.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it doesn't work for everyone, but it might be the thing that helps someone in whatever they're going through. So for me, it was, I think it was helpful. I mean, mine wasn't really for my anxiety, it was for someone else. So I think at the time it was really helpful. But I don't know, I do think I'm quite like introverted, and I do find it quite hard to open up, even in front of friends, let alone someone I've not met. So for me, it was quite difficult. Yeah.
I mean, there's no easy way to do it, I guess, of course. But also, I just think you don't know unless you do go. And also, there are therapists and there are therapists.
Totally.
If you don't have, there's one that you don't get on with, and there will, again, there's, you know,
I mean,
there's plenty more therapists
mine
in the
was
sea.
lovely. But I do think as well, like, at some point, like, I just thought, right, we've just got to draw a line. I think just drawing a line and positive steps forward as well is
really
quite helpful
important
for me, yeah.
So with your writing then, can you remember the first song you ever wrote?
It was a song called Dreams Become Reality when I was 10. It was horrific, but...
Can you remember any lyrics?
I think it was dreams become reality for everyone on earth, but not everyone will find what they're looking for.
An optimist.
Doesn't make any sense, but...
There we go. And how's songwriting evolved for you then? What does a process in songwriting look like, and how did it start, and how is it now? What is that?
Well, it started at Dreams Become Reality. It's quite different now. I think I have like a few different ways of writing, because I write for other artists as well, which I love. And I mostly get in a room with other writers or the artists themselves. And it's quite like structured. It's like 12 till 6 or whatever. It's like a day, you sit down, you write the song. But when it's for me, it's quite different. It's just, I sit down with a guitar and just let it like a stream of consciousness. Like if you were journaling, it's like that, but with music basically. And then if anything good comes out, I make it into a song. But it feels like so, it feels like meditating. It feels like a bit of like a trance.
Just therapeutic.
Yeah, it feels great. But you don't get great stuff every day, so...
No, of course. It's interesting, actually, as an artist. And I know that for you, you're like, oh, this is my day-to-day, I know this. But people will be interested to hear, when do you know if it's good or not? You know what I mean? Because, of course, management will have an opinion, but you've got to get that idea from, if you're in your music room at home. So when do you feel it's a good idea or a good call, like a good,
No, there's two things. Firstly, you just get this feeling inside you that's like, it's like euphoric. I'm like, oh my God, like, I think this is the best song I've ever written. It's like so exciting. And then either the next day you'll listen back and think, what the fuck, like, that's awful. What was I thinking? Or you still like it. And I think it's two tests. It's like, on the day, are you excited? If you're excited, chances are other people will be excited. Day 2 or day 3, when you've gained some perspective and come down from your little like creative high.
So it's good to sit on it.
Yeah. And then sometimes I'm like, what? Like, that's awful. And then other times I'm like, okay, yeah, we're on to something.
What piece of advice would you give to somebody, let's say somebody in Scotland, when you were kind of thinking about the music industry, what piece of advice would you give to them who want to penetrate getting into music?
I think it's so different now, like it's so much more accessible, which is really exciting. And I think I would have loved that when I was younger. Like, you can just post a TikTok and it could change your life overnight. Like, it's crazy. So I think, if you have something you want to share, like, share it, put it up there. I think can't be too cautious these days with sharing things, and I think you just never know what's going to connect. So, yeah, I think where you live and your contacts actually aren't really a limit anymore, which is great.
Yeah, definitely. I think with the music industry, though, which you've now been in a long time, despite being so young still, it's a huge and potentially toxic industry.
Yeah.
And that has the opportunity for this. And I'm not saying that is everyone's experience. What's your kind of experience of that being like? Have you ever experienced the negative side of the music industry?
Yeah, definitely. I think what's really important to me, and like any other aspiring artist I would recommend, is just finding a team of people, like finding a manager, finding an agent or whatever it is that you need, and just making sure like that team's really tight and that they've got your best interests at heart. Because I feel like whatever I've gone through, like in the industry, whatever it's been, like my manager has really been there for me and just had my back and fought my corner, and it's just made it so much easier being that team. So yeah, I think that having that support, I would not have been able to do it on my own. Like I think I would have quit about 10 years ago.
Have you ever had that kind of experience, because the music industry is so visual as well now, particularly, where you've been told, oh, you must wear this, you must dress like this, you need to come in with your makeup done and stuff, and how's that changed now for you?
Yeah, I think when I was younger, I definitely had a lot more of that, and it was a lot more like, I think like the major labels had a lot more control, and I think it was a lot more, what's the word, manufactured.
Sure.
Whereas I think now, like, people just leave you to it. They're like, yeah, you just like be who you want, post what you want, which is great, but it's also like, oh, what do I do then? But yeah, definitely I felt a lot of pressure when I was younger to like be a certain person, or dress a certain way, look a certain way, sound a certain way. And I think there was less focus on just being yourself and being like an individual. It was more like, be like this person, fit in this box. So I'm glad that that's changed.
It's interesting as well with the rise of social media, and as you say, anyone could post a TikTok and it go viral of them singing. So what's your relationship now like with social media? Because I know you spent a significant period of time off it completely, which is, I'm very impressed by the way.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, it must have been so liberating and freeing.
It was great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not gonna lie, if I didn't do music, probably wouldn't have it, because I noticed huge differences to my mood, like my levels of anxiety, even just like how conscious I was of the world around me. Like last year I was just writing for other artists, and I thought I'll just take some time off, and it's the happiest I've ever been. Like I just felt so creative. I think when you're on social media, your brain's taking in so much information, and I don't know what goes on up there, but it's probably like going through it all. So it's limiting space for thinking and actually being bored and coming up with ideas. So I feel like since going back on social media, I mean, obviously it's not the worst thing in the world, but I've noticed huge differences of how I feel day to day. Like I feel quite up and down, and if I post something that I'm really excited about and maybe it doesn't reach a certain amount of people, I feel like, oh, like it's just maybe not good enough, or makes me question myself, which is so ridiculous because a lot of it's just algorithmic. But I think there's huge pressure on artists, and a lot of other artists I speak to, or even other creatives, are feeling a similar way, I think. But yeah, rationally, I'm like, whatever, it's just an algorithm. But also when you work so hard at something and you care so much about an album that you made or whatever, it's like, oh, I really want it to get out there, you know?
Do you think in your position as a creative and an artist, it's better to look at social media as a tool?
Yeah, I think so. And I think I see like songs blowing up on TikTok, and they just come and go. Like maybe the artist can't even sell out a gig, which must be so weird when it's like you have these fans, these people like your music, but it's like actually getting people to connect to the artist is quite challenging these days. So I think, yeah, social media is obviously so important, but I think also like putting on shows, like really like getting to know your fan base and stuff like that's equally as important. Yeah.
We touched on community and what that looks like, and social media is a massive place to build that community. But inside that community, you've also got to have that support bubble of your closest friends and family. So how important is that for you when you're feeling those pressures, particularly now when you've got, you know, hundreds of thousands of people looking at you, you're selling out shows, and you still get these experiences of, you know, shit, I'm going on stage and actually sometimes maybe I still do get nervous, or I'm singing about this. So how important is that support bubble and having your closest pals?
Yeah, really important. I think like none of my like best friends that I've like grown up with and stuff, none of them are in music, which is really refreshing, because like we're all in completely different things. Like we've been best friends since we were at school, and like we'll have a dinner or whatever, and I'll say what's been troubling me, and they're like, "What?" Like,
Come on, Nina.
yeah, and I'm like, "Oh yeah." It's quite nice. It just like puts things in perspective, and yeah, I think also that Scottish kind of like get a grip, like. We're quite.
There's
like,
a time and a place, and it
yeah.
works with your home pals.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah.
That's really nice. What about when you go on like tour then, where you spend significant time away from your kind of your friends and family? Do you get lonely on tour?
Yeah.
Or have you?
Yeah. My mental health plummets on tour, and I'm definitely trying to tour better now that I've toured so much. It like when I must have spent about 2 years in America, pretty much like on and off, but long periods of time away from everyone. And on the one hand, I was like, oh my God, I get to see America. This is so exciting. Having like incredible experiences that I'll literally remember forever. But then on the other hand, I was just so burnt out by the end of it. Like,
It's a double-edged sword.
yeah, like really depressed, I think, because I was just sat in the dressing room staring at a wall, like not really getting any daylight or drinking, and it just sort of, it catches up with you. So I think now I'm like, get out and see the place, like get some daylight. It's
Do
like
you have any
so silly,
creature
but-
comforts on tour? Anything you bring with you that's kind of, you always have to have with you?
Yeah, I like my oils,
Nice.
I like my lavender oils. Like, I don't know about you, but this might be quite extreme, but scent is so important to me.
I think it's so, well, again, we're always so overstimulated in the world, but
Yeah.
like some obviously not rely, but
Yeah.
engage with one more than the other.
Yeah, I find touring like a sensory overload that is just too overwhelming for like who I am, and like socially as well. I'm so introverted that I find it just takes a lot out of me. So to just have a space where like I can get my oils out and just have like, I don't know, a light that's there every day or music that's there, like just a constant, it's really helpful.
So lavender's the one.
Lavender's great. I love a bit of that.
What about
Yeah.
routine on tour then? Because you will go through times where you're having late nights, you're
Yeah.
often traveling, you've got to get up early, you don't know what you're doing. How do you maintain routine on tour?
You don't. So I think I love a routine. Like routine keeps me sane. But on tour, I kind of have to just let go and just think, right, I'm just going to go with it, take each day as it comes.
You also are with your manager and have been with your manager for a long time.
Yes.
And you've started basically a new business.
Yes.
Which is incredibly cool, very exciting. Has that been in the works for a while, and is that a daunting prospect, bringing that together? I mean, at least you have the trust in this manager of yours that's going to kind of be
Yeah.
an endeavour together.
Yeah, definitely. We hadn't really thought about it before, to be honest. But she's been managing me since I was 17, 18. I'm now 29, so that's quite a while. And we've done the major label thing together. We've done the independent label thing together. When she first started working with me, we released independently. So I knew like we've done it before. And I just think like I left my indie label last year and we were like, right, what do we want to do for the next album? Do we want to go to a major, an indie? Like what we thinking? And I was kind of like, so much of it falls on us. Like so much of the work is now just posting on social media or, growing the fan base by playing live dates. So I was thinking, what can a major label really bring to the table in 2024? Because I feel like a lot of it is now just social media, playing gigs, and I feel like we sort of have that covered. And I think because I've been doing it for so long, like I'm really lucky to have a fan base, whereas I think maybe new artists, like they maybe still benefit from the major label kind of power and contacts, but it just felt like a good time in my career to have a new challenge. I think we know how we like working now. Been doing it quite a while. And we thought that Apple Tree was our first release together.
Yeah, it's a
that
cool
song.
name. I like it.
Thank you. Yeah. So it's kind of like a homage to that.
I think it's really beautiful.
Okay.
I know that you have the kind of current thing where you're going to have the album being released through this. What are the future goals of the company? Like, are you looking to sign people? What's going down?
I'm just gonna wait and see.
Yeah.
Like,
How the cookie crumbles.
yeah, we never really started it to be like, let's make this like the biggest label in the world and sign loads of artists. It was more just, I want to put this album out. What's the best way? So now, yeah, my focus is on this album, actually learning how to run a label, because I would want to start putting other people's stuff out before I've done my own. Yeah, hopefully have some success on my own.
You will.
Hopefully. And then I would love to like put other artists' songs out.
So do you think it's a lot of trial and error for you at this point? Because you have been in the music industry for a long time, as we know, but from that side of things, from a label perspective, this is quite new.
It is quite new, but I do feel like I've always been quite DIY. Like, I started a YouTube channel when I was 15. That's kind of how I built a lot of my fan base. So I feel like I've sort of been doing a lot of it the whole time, but this is just like the extra. I mean, there's a lot of things I didn't realise were a thing.
Downloads, awards, public opinion, personal opinion of music. How does Nina define success?
Do you know, I don't really know in this day and age. I'm not sure. And I think, I think I'm still figuring out what success in 2024 is. I'd like to say, it's when I'm happy. But realistically, I'm a very ambitious person, so I always have new goals. But I feel content in what I'm doing, and I think that's the main thing. But what even is success? I would love to see like a large number of people connecting to something that I've made. I think that would, but then what even is a large number of people? I don't know.
yeah.
I
It's
don't
true.
know really.
I know it's
Getting to do this as a job, really.
that's I mean, I guess you must wake up often and go, it's like when you see your friends, this perspective thing. It's like, actually, this is incredible. This is very lucky. What's your kind of pinch me moment then, if you can reflect on your career thus far?
I mean, genuinely just getting to do this as a job. I can't believe that I'm still here, to be honest. So that, and then there's been lots of moments. Recently was supporting Coldplay at Hampden Stadium in Scotland. That was like, unreal. And then I got to sing with Chris Martin there. It was just like, it feels like a dream still. That's a pinch me moment.
This is me being curious. After that kind of thing, the come down must be like mental, like the day after.
Yeah.
Because you're so buzzed on adrenaline and playing in front of that many people, playing with Coldplay.
Mm-hmm.
What's that like?
Unreal. Like, it was, I'll always remember that. The next day I drove 8 hours back down south.
Yeah.
So that was a come down. I was also like, I didn't sleep. I was so wired after that I was like driving. So that brought me back down to earth. But yeah, it took a while. I felt really inspired after it though. Like, that experience really inspired a lot of this album, because I think just seeing them play a venue that big and like everyone singing along and just how anthemic the songs felt, I thought, I feel inspired by that.
I've enjoyed this question with other kind of musicians and artists that I've spoken to. If you could bring back someone from the dead to collaborate with, who would you choose and why?
Oh. I feel like a lot of my idols are still alive.
Well, that is fortunate.
There's still hope for me. Who knows with AI now?
This is true. Yeah.
God. Do you know who I love? And this is quite niche. It'd probably be a terrible collab because it's just a bit of a weird one. Chet Baker.
Okay.
Chet Baker is like a jazz trumpet player and singer, and I listen to him every time I eat a meal. We've got like a few there now. We just put it like, I feel like I'm in France. It's great, like little jazz cafe.
Why not?
Love it. And jazz like is obviously like a form of music I don't play, have no idea how to play. So it's nice to just zone out. But Chet Baker holds a special place in my heart.
Love that.
Love to just sing
Go
a
on,
little.
if someone needed a song to listen to, can you suggest one to introduce them to Chet Baker?
Well, the big hit is I Fall in Love Too Easily. A lot of people have sampled that one as well. But my favourite one is Everything Happens to Me.
There we are.
Would recommend.
I will go listen to it after.
Do it.
Nina, I've really enjoyed this, but I ask this question to everybody. What does the word headstrong mean to you?
I think... Oh, that's a big question. Headstrong. Knowing your worth. Like... Knowing your worth and knowing your limits.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming in, being very honest. Mountain Music is coming in September. Super exciting. Good luck with the show tomorrow.
Thank you.
And
Thanks so much.
thank you.
Thank you.
That's a wrap for that.